The most attractive thing about 5-year-old cars is that now they can be sold without losing a single ruble, thanks to the party for that, as they say. On the other hand, a well-developed network of specialized services and recently acceptable prices for spare parts suggest that there will be no problems with these machines. It is only important to dwell on the popular model so that there is plenty to choose from, and preferably restyled, so that the manufacturer has time to fix their own jams. Our today's hero meets all these requirements, both popular and inexpensive, and studied up and down. And he had restylings, and you can't count them. 5. And even the 4th generation Pajero, which appeared in 2006, was, in fact, a deep restyling of the 3rd. And each time the car got better and better, and we are unlikely to hear about its replacement in the near future. The 4th Pajero was produced in a 3- and 5-door body, with a short and long base, with a 4-, 5- and 7-seater saloon. In 2010, the production of the 3-door version was discontinued due to lack of demand. The SUV is produced at several factories in Japan and America. In 2015, the model turned 25 years old. Rather, it would be necessary to count not according to the model, but according to the platform, since the countdown is from the Pajero 3. Approximately the same years of ergonomics of an SUV, the strength of a load-bearing body and driving comfort. No, I do not want to say that things are bad, but in comparison with modern cars there is something to complain about. But corrosion resistance is at a fairly high level. Most often, rust seriously affects only those who have been in an accident and badly restored cars. Of course, bugs sometimes appear under the chips, and traces of the red plague can be found under the glass seals, which simply wipe the paint, but in general, the endurance of the power structure of the body can only be praised. And despite the fact that the interior creaks on bumps like an unlubricated cart, even 20-year-old cars will not be able to find cracks in the side members, roof pillars, or junctions with the engine shield. Moreover, since 2006, with the advent of the Pajero 4, the body has become more rigid, especially for twisting. In the diagonal, all doors open and close, albeit with some difficulty. Over time, with frequent driving on bad roads, scuffs begin to appear on the doors, and the seals are crushed to the point that they begin to let dust into the cabin. In addition, the guides of the sliding windows, the trapeze of the wipers, and, oddly enough, the filler neck of the tank are also subject to corrosion. But the real problem with the monocoque body is that it is expensive and not easy to restore it after a serious accident. Actually, this is the main difficulty of the choice, not to run into a shifter. The second real trouble is not to buy a drowned man, although this is more true for Montero options. If body repair is required without a slipway, with the replacement of only the feathers, there will be no difficulties. Body parts are inexpensive, and there are a lot of showdowns. For example, the front fender costs about 2,000 rubles. With moldings, fender liner, expanders, fasteners, painting, and installation, repairs will cost 10 to 15,000, depending on the location and quality. Cheaper if you change only the wing, only the metal. On the Pajero 4 generation, mainly 4 engine options were installed: gasoline 3.0 and 3.8 liters and diesel 3.2 liters. Cars from the Emirates come with an old 3.5-liter engine, but they are rare. All engines are good and reliable, but the 3.0-liter is a little lacking for dynamic driving in fast traffic, and not even a little, but simply not enough. Because of this, you have to actively pedal, and the fuel consumption comes out almost higher than that of a motor with a large volume. The 3.2-liter GDI, which is not the most suitable for our fuel, was not installed on the 4th generation, and this is good. Gasoline engines, V-shaped 6-cylinder with the timing belt drive. The belt needs to be changed every 90,000 kilometers. As usual, the smallest 3.0-liter 6G72 with 178 horsepower is considered the most trouble-free. He is also known for the 2nd generation Pajero and the 1st Pajero Sport. Problems with it can only arise with untimely and inattentive maintenance. Sometimes mechanics forget to tighten the crankshaft pulley bolt with the torque wrench. It slides and cuts the radiator, and the keyway and threads are broken so that the entire shaft needs to be replaced. The motor can eat up oil that oozes through the expansion joint caps. To service the fuel pump, you have to remove the tank, and errors in the control unit lead to detonation, while not being reflected in the emergency indicator panel in any way. But all this is rare, and there is nothing to sin except for sluggish acceleration on the 6G72. A more powerful 250 horsepower 3.8-liter 6G75 engine gives Pajero more dynamics and is considered the most suitable engine for an SUV. It is high torque, elastic, relatively economical, not capricious, and well studied by mechanics. In fact, this is an engine from the Eclipse Sports model, designed for the North American market. The only weak link can be called the MIVEC valve timing system. However, this is not about breakdowns or failures, but simply about increased noise, a kind of rumble with rustling and rattling, as if something had unscrewed. Picky buyers tried to fight him, but in vain. Noise in the area of /U200B/U200B blockheads is just a feature of the gas distribution system. In the event that thrust suddenly began to disappear, it is worth checking the mass airflow sensor in the throttle block. If dirt builds up there, the engine control unit begins to get confused in the readings. A couple of times to spray from a spray can with a special composition, and the engine is like new. At the beginning of the production of the fourth Pajero, there were cases of rotation of the crankshaft support bearing, which could lead to the replacement of the entire unit if the breakdown fell within the warranty period. The assembly error was recognized by the manufacturer, and almost all cases went through revocable and service programs. Nevertheless, a knock in the area of /U200B/U200B crankshaft bed, reminiscent of a burnt-out muffler, should be very alert. Even the owners of Pajero and the third and fourth generations can remember a very unpleasant breakdown when the throttle fastener turned away and it flew into the cylinder. It is clear that this led to disaster. But, fortunately, this rarely happens and is easily noticeable when flushing the throttle block, which we have already recommended. On a par with the 3.8-liter engine, almost surpassing it in popularity, is the 3.2-liter common rail 4 and 41 turbo diesel engine. By the way, this 4-cylinder 16-valve engine traces its lineage to the 2.8-liter that was installed on the Pajero 2 and was loved for its high torque power and economy. In 2010, he changed the intake system, putting a variable geometry turbine, a new piston and intake manifold, which increased power to 200 horsepower. The diesel is chain, very reliable, and it can only have problems with a run of 200,000 or more. And then not even from him, but from the mounted one. The injection pump is the first to surrender. It can be replaced for 100,000, or it can be repaired for 50. There are also contract ones for sale for 60,000, and with a guarantee. But where will this seller be in a couple of months? The turbine lets oil in. Also, about 50 for replacement and 20,000 for repairs, or from disassembly. If you are unlucky with refueling, then the high-pressure fuel pump valve can quickly fail, which leads to the appearance of the check engine inscription and twitching when driving. Replacement costs 10 to 15,000 rubles. On average, after 150,000 mileage, the EGR valve requires cleaning, which costs dealers 15,000 rubles. By the way, the new valve can be found half the price, only you will not find the Mitsubishi brand on it, and it will be made in China. The nozzles are doing well and with high-quality fuel, and even with detergent additives, they easily nurse the same 150,000 kilometers. The timing chain damper and tensioner require replacement every 120 to 130,000 kilometers and cost 12,000 rubles in the kit. Such runs for the Pajero 4 come on average by 8 years of operation, so there is still a choice. The Mitsubishi Pajero 4 transmission will in any case be 5-dash, and the transfer case will be 2-stage. The well-proven INVEX 2 automatic with manual shifting, capable of adapting to the owner's driving style, went to our hero from the third generation of the SUV, as well as the famous transfer case of the Super Select series with 4 modes of operation, which allows you to choose only rear and permanent drive, except 4H and 4L. Many Pajero buyers have chosen this model precisely because of the drive. A manual was also available for order, but was not as popular as an automatic. But not only the advantages, but also the disadvantages of the transmission were transferred to the fourth Pajero, the main of which are the knock of the cardan at the rear gearbox and a weak clutch. The first, alas, is not treated in any way, and the second manifests itself when 2 wide tires are put on an SUV. The machine requires an oil and filter change at least once every 90,000 kilometers, and the mechanics only need topping up. Rarely, but it happens that the front axle connection sensor fails, as indicated by the flashing all-wheel drive icon. By the way, before you run and change the sensor for 3,000 rubles, you should check the battery charge. A voltage drop also leads to the activation of alarm indicators. In the chassis, the anthers of the CV joints deserve special attention, and since the suspension is independent, there are a lot of them and a small crack leads to the death of an expensive joint quite quickly. In any case, compared to the transmission and running suspension delivers much more trouble. Independent suspension means comfort, handling, safety, but, alas, reliability is not included in this list. The first, as usual, are the struts and bushings of the front stabilizer. The maximum that the bushings nurse is 45,000 kilometers. Racks can survive 2 sets of bushings, but will also inevitably require replacement due to elongated ears. Silent blocks of shock absorbers die after 50,000 mileage, while the shock absorbers themselves completely pass the same amount. The eccentric bolts of the rear levers are tightly sour, which makes it useless to visit the camber adjustment stand. By the way, on the 4th Pajero, they finally replaced the eternally knocking variable effort steering mechanism and put a simpler one. He also wears out, but much later. Brakes require attention more often than we would like. Even the slightest uneven wear leads to strong runout, and calipers are prone to wedging due to souring of the guides by the 3rd year of operation. The ABS wires are frayed. The $100 reservoir of the brake booster hydraulic accumulator fails. Wheel bearings, which can survive several Fords, fail by 100,000 and are not changed separately from the hubs. Fortunately, the part is not the most expensive, and in addition to the original one at 12,000 rubles per hub, you can find a non-original one for 8 to 10 or a second-hand one for 2,000. But separately, you can change the ball lower arms for 2,500 rubles apiece. For some reason, many consider the Toyota Prado to be a competitor to the Mitsubishi Pajero 4, although these are completely different cars, similar only in that they belong to middle-class SUVs. A direct competitor for the Pajero 4, I would call the previous generation Nissan Pathfinder. They are close in everything. However, when choosing a used utility vehicle, it's worth taking a closer look at Mitsubishi. Especially if you are looking for a diesel with an automatic and are going to drive all year round, sometimes getting away from the roads. After all, Pajero is an old master of off-road kung fu. And although he is not as brutal as his predecessors, he is still able to serve his owner just as faithfully.